Before we get started, look at this headline really quick. Just take a very good look at this headline, read it to yourselves, and you got to ask yourself a question after reading this. Are you sure that it's not just money? It's also some wokeness. It's also tokenization, of course, mostly by liberals, white liberals in particular. I mean, I just said money, immigration, all that type of stuff. We'll definitely be talking about pretty much all of this in this video, but still, when you see a headline from The Root, which is definitely a left-wing site, which I oftentimes laugh at from time to time, where they basically say that straight black men are the white men of black men. This right here is absolutely insane. And you're wondering why it is that blacks are, for the most part, saying, you know what, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be part of this voting bloc anymore. I don't want to vote for these people anymore. I think it's time we try something new, regardless whether it's Trump or whether it's RFK or whoever it is. Either way, though, the Democratic Party is obviously hemorrhaging black voters, black men in particular, because of crap like what you just saw. And of course, there are these factors too.
There are some people in your orbit who are either voting for Donald Trump or considering it?
For sure. A lot of my friends are obviously my age, so we're a little younger. We've only voted once, for a president. And Trump is kind of all we know. And they're kind of Trump and Biden. They're like, well, we were broke with Biden. We weren't with Trump. And that's kind of the only thing that I'm hearing over and over again, is that, well, Trump, we had money. Well, okay.
This is not the Dallas Cowboys versus your favorite team.
We got ourselves a bit of a problem here. Well, it's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for my side. But of course, we've talked about this before. And of course, what you saw in that barbershop is not exactly something that MSNBC likes. Now, at the time of recording this video on Sunday and releasing it on Monday, the Democratic primary in South Carolina has already been concluded. Don't worry, we'll be bringing that up here in a second. But here's the thing. If you look at this, these polling numbers, obviously the current sitting president, or I said the current sitting president, I have no idea why I said that, but the sitting president of the United States, Democrat Joe Biden, he apparently is struggling with voters who are black. Isn't this like 95, 96% supposed to go to the Democrat? I mean, I'm a little bit confused. I mean, I know that Donald Trump made some inroads with said community, inroads with said race, but at the same time, though, given the fact that now the New York Post is reporting that 50 Cent, of all people, is basically saying maybe Trump is the answer. Don't worry, we'll get to that in this video as well. You got to be asking yourself this question. Why in the world are black voters not so sure about voting for Joe Biden? Now, I want to go ahead and say this right now. This video is purely a political video, purely political analysis. I'll tell you guys what I think is probably going to happen, but we got to go through this step by step so that way we can figure out exactly why this was the problem. Also, one more thing too. There's going to be a follow-up to this video that's going to be more from the Republican side of the aisle. And the reason why is because, well, let's just say that you can find a way to screw things up, but let's go.
South Carolina.
I heard about this place.
His first stop, a black-owned barbershop in downtown Columbia, in re-election mode with his focus on young and black voters whose support has been slipping.
With the Palestinian-Israel war going on, I think my view personally has shifted on Biden.
Gen Z, we want to see things getting done and not just hearing about pro-America, pro-freedom, and pro-democracy.
How's that better?
16-term Congressman Jim Clyburn leading the charge for Biden here, just as he did 4 years ago.
There's no better way for good people to break their silence than to march to the ballot boxes.
An NBC News survey in November showed 61% of black voters would choose Biden over a Republican. In 2020, NBC News exit polls showed Biden won 87% of the black vote.
What does he need to do to make people feel like he's done a good job?
I think he's done a good job, and that's what we've got to do, is get people to see that.
Clyburn again making the case for Biden in a state where Clyburn is revered, a leading voice in black communities for decades. He calls himself President Biden's validator.
That's what we've got to do between now and November. Tell people what it is that we have done. Tell them what the rescue plan is all about. Tell them what the infrastructure bill is all about.
The campaign also taking that message to young voters with college visits, social media posts, and radio spots. University of South Carolina junior Kyle Brantley supports Biden, but says students want a more visible seat at the table.
When the campaign understands that and realizes that now, and especially moving forward, they'll be able to connect more with the youth voting bloc.
The foundation is already there, and now we just have to get them reelected.
Now, guys, that right there was from roughly a week ago, okay? And there's also another report that I have in this video that comes from really 6 or 7 months ago. But don't worry, it kind of, let's just say it helps out with the whole notion that black voters are not exactly enthused about voting for Joe Biden. So this was obviously the South Carolina primary. You guys obviously saw some of this. The Democratic National Convention moved the first in the nation primary to South Carolina rather than having a Iowa caucus. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why in the world would the incumbent president need to have a primary? Well, here's the reason why. You see, every election cycle, I know that most of you guys who watch my content are at least somewhat well-versed on politics and understand things. But of course, if you're new to the audience and of course you're starting to break into politics, let me go ahead and answer that question. The reason why is because you're selecting congressional, you're selecting local representatives, you're selecting not only local representatives, but you're also selecting possible members of the Senate. Of course, this right here is not a year where South Carolina has a Senate race, but still at the same time, though, you're obviously picking your choice, your nominee. The sitting president, by the way, can be primaried out while he is actually in office, and many people think, myself included, that you're about to see an election that looks a lot like what the 1968 presidential election was. I personally think it's a combination of both 68 and 2012, but we'll probably do more videos in the future about this over the course of this year. The thing is this right here. You still have to select your nominee. And, of course, you guys obviously saw the New York Post piece, or at least you guys saw at least in the sidebar here in the frame, about how it is that another rapper, is basically saying maybe Donald Trump is actually the answer. Truth be told, Curtis Jackson and Donald Trump have been friends for a very long time. If you hear my phone going off in the background, it's not really my phone, it's actually my iPad. I apologize for that, but it'll stop here in a second. The thing is this right here. The reason why this situation is getting the way it is because of what my man said at the very, very beginning. That's only part of this. This is the main reason why. The secondary reason is obviously the illegal immigration. However, the illegal immigration typically does not mean that somebody will be voting for the opposite party. It just makes somebody angry and makes them not want to vote for said party. The thing is this right here. At this moment in time, black people aren't exactly feeling, good about their current financial situation. They don't have as much money. Now, of course, the jobs report came out, and the jobs report said that Joe Biden created a lot of jobs, 350,000 to be exact. However, what they're not telling you is that a lot of these jobs, of course, according to the Congressional Budget Office, according to not only the Congressional Budget Office, but the actual interiors of the job report are showing exactly what we've been saying for the entire time he's been in office. A lot of the jobs are still post-pandemic jobs, even though those jobs for the most part have been filled. It's also leaving a lot of people with not enough hours, roughly getting 20 hours a week, in some cases 15 to 16, taking on a second job. And of course, the January jobs report, which came out in the 1st of February, is actually based upon the December hiring numbers. So that right there should go ahead and clear some of that up. Don't worry, I'll link some stuff in the description box for you guys to see that for yourself. But why is this right here the case? Well, the second reason why is obviously because, well, the illegal immigration problem. Now, we have talked about this issue for a very long time. We've talked about it for over a year. And, of course, we've talked about how it is that migrants are being brought in to basically usher in some form of one-party rule, but they're also replacing an entire voter base. That voter base just happens to be roughly 12% of the nation, that right there being people who are black, people of color. The current Democratic Party, of course, they typically get 90% of that vote every single election cycle. When Obama was running, it was 98, then it was 96 as the incumbent president. And, of course, Joe Biden got 87% of that vote. And many people are saying he probably gets below 80% this cycle here. I'm here to tell you guys that, well, maybe not that bad, but definitely not good enough. We'll talk more about that towards the end of the video, though. But the thing is this right here. You guys have obviously seen that the Democratic Party, once again, is putting an extreme emphasis on black turnout, especially when it comes to black single women. This is another reason why it is I don't see them replacing the current nominee, given the circumstances, seeing how it is that so much effort was put into young black females, especially single females, why they will not be replacing Joe Biden with Gavin Newsom. I don't even think they'll do it with Michelle Obama, but don't worry, that video is coming out soon to kind of clamp down on things I've said before, because James O'Keefe recently released a piece that kind of explains what it is that most people, including myself, have been saying about the current nominee and why it is that they will not be throwing the former First Lady into the race. But getting back to immigration, guys, this right here, this little piece I'm about to show you right now, it's roughly a year old. If you go and you look at it YouTube, it'll probably say 6 months. But of course, the incident's been getting reported on for the past year. Make sure you guys pay very, very close attention to this. This is actually in New York City, but it's been happening in Chicago and other areas. It's something that I have not yet covered on this channel, but it does definitely have to do with the migration crisis.
Midtown Manhattan, now a public shelter for migrants. We uncovered potentially dangerous conditions there.
Yeah, and now we've uncovered a massive waste of food paid for by the public, as one would expect from a sanctuary city like New York. So how is this happening? We're talking bags of food tossed into the garbage.
This in a city where lots of people could use that food. Here's Seven on Your Side investigative reporter Kristen Thorne.
This is insane. This is fresh. This is good food. This is bags and bags of food being thrown away.
Workers at the Row Hotel in Midtown say it's a nearly everyday occurrence.
We throw away food that is perfectly fine.
The 1,300-room hotel is being used exclusively as a shelter for migrants, some of whom are seeking asylum.
This is completely sad. This is a waste. We wasted a lot of food. We got homeless in New York City.
Felipe Rodriguez works in the housekeeping department at the hotel and told us about the food being thrown out.
Bagels is just going to waste.
He says this is the delivery the city makes to the hotel every day, 3 times a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Fruit, water, and sandwiches are also available on every floor. Rodriguez says workers have spoken with hotel management about the amount of food being thrown out.
We have complained rigorously about the waste of food.
This housekeeping attendant, who did not want to be identified, says she throws out food all the time.
Boxes of apples, boxes of bananas. They throw out the sandwiches as well.
We asked the city repeatedly how much it spends every day supplying food to migrants at the Row. They didn't get back to us with an answer, but said the food is prepared fresh in the city every day and reflects the diets of the residents at the hotel. A city spokesperson said in a statement, "We cannot and would not ever force clients to finish food they had taken, but we do donate leftover food when possible." The city says some of the food is discarded, but they didn't say how much and how much the waste is costing tax.
I wonder if any poor black folks who are only working like 8 or 9 hours a week, got to work 2 or 3 jobs, I wonder how they feel about all this extra food just getting tossed out by a bunch of migrants who, quite frankly, aren't actually supposed to be here and are breaking the law by entering here illegally. But then again, at the same time, you can't really and truly blame them given the fact that we have an extremely weak leader who's very, very incompetent and is openly trying to destroy the country. Okay, so you're seeing that migrants have gotten pissed off, upset. They don't like the food, so we toss the food away. We would much rather have the hotel's food. Now, while this food was definitely given to the migrants at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York, this food was made by volunteers. Roughly $11 a pop. That right there is how much they basically get paid for this food. Meals that have been created, almost like Meals on Wheels. If you have one of those services that delivers meals to the less fortunate or those who can't get out, say like senior citizens or whatnot. So the migrants don't exactly like this. They don't like the idea that somebody has taken the time, somebody who obviously runs a charity or a nonprofit has taken time to ensure that these people get food. So they reject it, they get pissed off, they toss it in the trash, they toss it in the garbage. However, the thing about said food is this right here. Whatever food it does not actually get to the migrants, which of course this was also a bad move by those who were doing the charities, because obviously those who work in charity, they were wanting the food to go to disadvantaged families, meaning families that were not getting a lot of money, families that can't really eat. Just because you're working a job, you're probably getting 15 to 20 hours a week. It's not a guarantee that you can actually eat, especially in a city like, say, New York, where the cost of living is through the roof. The thing is this right here. These meals are obviously made for that reason, and they're also given to homeless, the people who are homeless as well. Now, the homeless, of course, I don't know if they vote or not. I don't know if they actually can vote, but I do think it's funny, especially given the fact that the homeless are tired of the migrants as well. You could see some extremely crazy stuff occur. I mean, The Amish are already voting this election cycle. Nobody expects them to vote. They voted in 2016, 2020. It seems to me like ever since Donald Trump came around, everybody has decided to get involved in politics, all the way down to even those who are homeless. Now, me personally, I would have said that the homeless, and I'm not saying this to be a jerk to the homeless or try to make fun of them, but I would think that something like, say, the apocalypse or an apocalyptic scenario would be nothing more than a good old-fashioned inconvenience to said people. But when you have the city of New York giving out $53 million in prepaid cell phones, credit cards, stuff like that to migrants, and of course you've got a whole population or a whole group of people who, quite frankly, has been collecting said benefit, which I don't think they should collect said benefit, but I do understand the safety net. Yes, jealousy will in fact breed, like you're about to see now.
Questions being raised tonight about a new pilot program that'll give migrant families a reloadable prepaid credit card to buy food and baby supplies.
All right, it would replace the food boxes given to asylum seekers staying in hotels. Fox 5's Jessica Formoso has more on how it would all work.
Some migrant families will soon be given prepaid credit cards to buy food and baby supplies. The mayor's office says the city is partnering with Mobility Capital Finance to launch a more cost-effective program. Right now, the city has contracts with food services who provide non-perishable food boxes to shelters. They will start with 500 migrant families with children in short-term hotel stays. The cards can only be used at bodegas, grocery stores, supermarkets, and convenience stores.
We're just giving this migrant population more free stuff at the expense of New York City taxpayers.
In a statement, the mayor's office says, in part, quote, not only will this provide families with the ability to purchase fresh food of their culturally relevant diets and the baby supplies of their choosing, but the pilot program is expected to save New York City more than $600,000 per month or more than $7.2 million annually.
I'm not going to be thankful that a program that was bloated and inefficient is somehow cheaper to just give away free money to people in the hopes that they feed themselves.
According to the New York Post, this pilot program will cost the city $53 million. The amount loaded on the card will depend on the family size.
They're deflecting attention away from their incompetency. And they're not holding accountable the people that had prior contracts.
Paramalu is with artists, athletes, and activists. He says the Adams administration is setting up the migrants for failure.
Purchasing food at the supermarket is not cheap anymore. And on top of that, they don't have kitchens. So how are they going to purchase the food that they want?
The families who get these credit cards will be required to sign an affidavit swearing they will only use them for food or baby supplies. Those who violate the terms could be kicked out of the program. In Midtown, I'm just...
This right here kind of reminds me of that whole Obama cell phone thing. Of course, these cell phones are not Obama phones, and they're not exactly going to people who you thought were thinking. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when you hear something like this, where, of course, jealousy is going to be created, it's pretty daggone obvious. It is the politics of envy, and it's also identity politics not working out, which, of course, we'll be definitely doing another video on here in the future, but let's get back on point. So, once again, wasted taxpayer dollars, wasted food, already being replaced. Fights. Of course, we've covered this before. Randall Island, all that stuff there. And you wonder why it is that some voters are beginning to get upset. You wonder why it is that someone, a rapper, who, of course, was told he was not allowed to vote for Donald Trump back in 2020 by his ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Handler. Yes, that right there are the reasons why it is that black voters are in fact turning. But don't worry, there'll be a follow-up on Tuesday on how it is that Republicans could in fact screw this entire situation up. You've seen the jealousy, you've seen it get bred, and of course I feel for these people, but at the same time though, I also think these areas, these blue run areas, are ran extremely poorly. Yeah, before I get to this next point, I want to go ahead and say this. Back in 2022, the guy I know came up to visit, family, this, that, and the other, stopped in on me for a little bit. He always loves to go on about how is that capitalism is bad. It's just one of those situations where you just have somebody who just is a friend of yours that just don't agree with you. And of course, you just sit there and you listen while you're driving around town. You're looking at the poor areas because I live in a small town. Well, I live actually in a university town, but the town that I was born and raised in is a smaller town. Local level Democrats run that place. Of course, the town I live in, we have a Republican mayor. We just happen to have a Democrat city council, which is mostly moderate. And of course, the city actually looks pretty good, with the exception of a couple of areas. The people actually have common sense. It's very, very small amount, of course, is very, very rare for Democrats nowadays to actually have some form of common sense. But if you go to the area that I grew up in, you see that Democrats are actually running that area, and it's typically those of the woke type. The city has not been good for a very long time. You have the sweepstakes places up all the time, which I think are a drain on society. Certain areas of town look like pure, utter garbage. It looks like trash. And of course, this person had to throw a poke in at capitalism, not realizing that it isn't capitalism is not the reason why we're in this shape. It's because of extremely poor leadership. Now, I am a pure capitalist. Of course, I do believe in some forms of accountability. And of course, I'm a little bit more of a protectionist when it comes to overall intellectual property. And I understand why is that people in the Midwest feel this way. It's the reason why it is that you could say that the state of Ohio is not a Republican state, but more of a Trumpian state. I'm pretty sure if you actually look at that situation, you will see why this is the case. It's a wonder that 9.5 million Obama voters from 2008 and 2012 flipped to Donald Trump in 2016. Of course, they've not left his side. The thing is this right here. If capitalism is ran correctly, it can benefit everybody. But of course, in some of these poorer areas that are ran by Democrats, of course, you always see the overall outcome. It looks like complete, total crap. And of course, people are in fact getting tired of it. However, speaking of people getting tired of it, I came across this little bit from Bill Maher. You saw a very, very brief amount of it earlier on. And of course, you got to think to yourself, maybe people really and truly are, in fact, waking up, and maybe people really and truly are getting tired of how it is they're being told how to vote. Maybe it is that people are actually getting tired of the fact that, I don't know, maybe now that I look into this guy's past, I see that the answer was right there in front of me the whole time, but because I did not like the orange man, I could not see this. Let's watch this.
Feelings on the election coming up. I mean, Biden and Trump. Are you as depressed about that as most people as a choice?
My feeling is pick your policy, not your person. Find out. This is not the Dallas Cowboys versus your favorite team. This is the policies that will affect our generations for the next 20, 30, 40 years to come. So close your eyes, listen to the policies that are being pushed, and pay attention even to the people who don't have a chance of winning, because they're going to say policies you may want to push. And I would say do that, but make it policy-based.
So that means you're for...
That means I'm for black people and happy Black History Month.
But you're not saying one candidate over the other?
Hey man, my nigga, you ain't gonna get me in no trouble tonight. Hey,
No, that's your job with me, to get me in trouble.
My grandfather gave me some stellar advice sometimes. He said, son, sometimes you just got to know to stay out of white folks' business. And this time, I'm going to keep my mouth closed. I still like the policy that the old man had that I was supporting. I would encourage people to find who's supporting that policy and see what happens.
But you can't get yourself to say vote for Biden over Trump?
You want me to list it now? So now
I'm just saying that.
Can he get himself to apologize for the crime bill? Can he get himself to get his head out of his ass and say, black people, you are black regardless. I need you to tell me what I need to do. Can he pick a coalition of former people who are affected by drug laws, street gangs, recidivism and crime, and say, I need you as a board to advise me how to fix federal prisons? If he can do that, absolutely I can. So my challenge is out there.
All right.
Sounds like a man who's straight up walked away from the noise and walked away from the BS. When Joe Biden basically said to Charlemagne the God, if you don't know if you're from me or Trump, then you ain't black. I think that was a pretty pivotal moment in politics, and the reason why is because it told black people at home that they were like little babies, and that quite frankly they had no choice but to vote Democrat in the following election. They had to get Trump out. Well, see, the thing about Donald Trump being out of office, and I've kind of gone back and forth about this, and I've thought to myself, you know what? What if Trump had remained in office? What if he'd actually won or stayed in office and there's just crap hadn't happened? It tells me that what would have occurred is the Democrats would have continued to try to do the impeachment game every 2 seconds, and that his second term would have been completely hampered. You see, here's the advantage of having a term where you don't have to worry about re-election. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can pretty much throw whatever agenda you want in there. Now, I'm not saying that he will throw all of it in there, but he'll definitely put certain portions of said agenda in there. And, of course, the fact that he's basically on a one-term proposition, he can choose whatever appointees he basically wants. He can choose whatever senators he can have. Truth be told about his term is that the first 2 years he had a Senate and a House that, quite frankly, didn't want to do anything more than tax cuts and improving the military. They fought him every step of the way. They fought him on border security. Of course, Republicans are also responsible for the border crisis in a way, too, because over time they wanted the cheap labor. All you got to do is just look into the Koch brothers. It's one thing that Bernie Sanders actually got correct when he said that open borders was a Koch brothers proposal. Also, Bill Clinton talked about shutting down the border, and Texas Republicans didn't want to do it, according to him. But, of course, according to Texas Republicans, Bill Clinton was just paying lip service to get reelected. He wasn't really caring that much about immigration either. Fact of the matter is they want the cheap labor. Of course, the current Biden administration, the current establishment, they want a one-party rule. And, of course, they view one particular voting bloc that they're actually bleeding supporters from. They want to actually replace said voter bloc. We've already talked about this in previous videos. I'll probably get the yellow dollar sign on this video just for bringing it up. Fact of the matter is this right here. They are, in fact, losing voters, if not to a Republican, but definitely to third parties as well. You've got Dr. Cornel West, who's more of a black ideologue, who's probably going to take away a little bit of that support. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fashions himself as one of the more older school type Kennedy, his uncle type liberals, even though he's closer to what his daddy was and his uncle Teddy was, which is actually a very, very far left liberal. But still at the same time, though, the Biden administration is extremely weak. We're looking at the Israel-Gaza situation. It's going to probably get worse. Of course, there are some people out there who identify more with one side. Obviously, me, of course, being a little bit more pro-Israel, but I can see why it is that some people feel the way they do, even though I don't agree with them. I really and truly don't. Fact of the matter is the current administration is extremely weak, and they can tell you that they're doing stuff, but when you actually look into it, you're not really doing anything at all. And then, of course, that brings in this thing right here, feelings over facts. It was Newt Gingrich who explained to Ben Shapiro a long time ago that Joe Biden was, in fact, the feelings over facts president.
A poster of yours, you talk about the facts. And Biden represents the feeling wing of America. So the facts don't matter. I mean, a little bit like AOC. I mean, she represents the hysterically feeling wing of America. And that among their people, facts don't matter. So the fact, people forget the first time Biden collapsed, he ran and he had this wonderful emotional speech about his childhood and growing up in a small town. It turned out it was Neil Kinnock's speech as a labor leader about Wales. Now, a guy who's from Scranton, representing Delaware, describing himself in terms of a Welsh village, this was back when the news media still had some sense of covering fact. I mean, the news media destroyed him. They just said, this is crazy. But one of the failures of my career, I'm watching the Palin-Biden debate, which is available online. People can check the transcript. And Biden says at one point, if you really want to understand the middle class, I want you to come to Katie's restaurant on Saturday morning where I go all the time. Well, in the back of my head, that didn't ring right. So I called a friend in Wilmington and said, when did Katie's close? Well, Katie's closed 13 years before he said that. So I called the McCain campaign, and this tells you a lot about why Republicans lose and why Trump's different than normal Republicans. I called the McCain campaign. I said, put her on an airplane tonight. Fly into Wilmington with the National Press Corps. Go looking for Katie's. And he'll tell you this guy's a doofus. And that's the danger that he would have as president. This is a man so shallow and so lacking in seriousness. You know, Bob Gates, the Secretary of Defense for both Obama and Bush, wrote in his memoir that for 4 decades, Biden has been consistently wrong on every major national security issue. Now, I mean, Gates is sort of a bureaucrat. He's not an ideologue. But that should sober people. Do you really want a guy as president who has been wrong for 4 decades on every major national security issue?
And people, of course, are feeling that Joe Biden is full of crap. They're not exactly eating the crap that he's shoveling. Fact of the matter is that people can tell right now that this guy has not been factual. He's not been honest at all. And, of course, people are feeling this. Of course, when you actually look at the propaganda that's preached on television, on MSNBC and CNN, but yet when you actually feel the loss in your pocket, you actually feel the hole in your pocket, you feel the damage that, of course, has been created on your family, you feel all the effects of what's happened, the fact that you don't have any money. After a while, people will eventually start to say to themselves, something is definitely wrong here. And, of course, this right here is the real reason why it is that black people are beginning to turn. So while you guys may have saw a bit of an amalgamation there, don't worry. There will definitely be a follow-up here because, of course, Republicans, if they are not smart, they can definitely bungle this entire situation. But let me know how you guys feel in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say on this issue. And, of course, to go on top of this, please make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, Sound off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.